Hey everybody, I'm at Hush Lake Rest Area in British Columbia, Canada, and I'm gonna do a little bit of running here. While I do that, I have some thoughts to share, and that's kind of gonna be the new format for Wilderness Runner. So thanks for tuning in and welcome to the channel. If it is your first time here or if you're coming back, thanks for watching. And I'm trying to provide some more thoughtful content than I have in the past. And I've realized that I've done a lot of reflection on my own running journey, and I've also been watching a fair amount of videos on ultra running, which is a topic that really interests me. And something that I keep hearing over and over and seeing over and over is the statement that you have to push yourself beyond what you ever thought you could do, and perhaps way beyond what you want to do. My question here is, first of all, what is effective? How do we determine what is effective? What is the criteria of something being effective versus not being effective? How do you decide what is and what isn't? Which I think has to come down to a little bit to what outcome you are actually looking for, right? And going out on this lake here, it's kind of warm today. Hearing a lot of cracking. I might not go on the lake here. Might run around it. You also might have noticed I hear people laughing at me in the background. They're out there ice fishing, which is cool. So that was one of my questions. And my other question is pushing yourself constantly actually most effective, or is that a myth? And I'm going to frame that question a little bit with some of my own experience with running. Let's go back to when I was in elementary school and I loved running. We had something called Mileage Club, and that was in third grade. All I did in third grade was just run, and some of my closest friends did that as well. We'd get out to recess, we'd start running Mileage Club, and we actually ran the whole time. And obviously it's hard to gauge, you have no frame of reference for how fast you're running as a third grader, but I felt like I was running pretty fast. I was always out with the fastest runners in the class, and we kept a good pace. We never walked. We talked the whole time. It was super fun. And we get these little chips and we turn them in, and it would say so-and-so got, 45 miles. And we'd have these little charts, and the higher mileage you were getting, the smaller the list of names on the chart. Super fun. Then I kind of discovered football in like 4th and 5th grade, and I would play football, which obviously involves some running, but just got away from the straight running, even though in 3rd grade my friends and I were running and saying this is all we're ever going to do. We love this so much. So all right, this is going to be interesting here. I'll try not to get too distracted by this process, but I'm not sure where I'm going to go here. Fast forward to middle school, which is the next time I got back into running, having not really had any significant run time for a while. And this is something that I'm going to lightly criticize institutions here and institutional ways of thinking, and then I'm going to ask you if this push yourself mindset is the product of some institutional thinking, which is probably going to be really challenging for people if you're actually runners, because I don't think that the running community really thinks of itself as a community that accepts an institutional way of thinking. But let me hear me out here. We go through school. We naturally like to run, right? Even before I was running mileage club, first grade, second grade, I was always racing other kids, and we were running around chasing each other at recess, and it was like you were always running as a kid, right? And then gradually there's less and less time provided for that. You go to school, you sit for 6 hours a day. It's less and less time to do running, and then they reintroduce it. And when they reintroduce it, it's this studied thing, right? Now you're running only if you're in track, which is this formalized version of what you used to do for fun as a kid. And so I began to dislike running because I really thought that what I liked about track was being around my friends. My first day in track, they have you run like the 1 mile or the 2 mile to see what your time is, to see where you're at, to see if you're good at it, to see if that's an event that you're going to get placed in, or at least that's how they did it in my school. And I wasn't ready to run 2 miles. And of course I ran like as hard as I could because that's what you're going to do as a kid who's put up to a challenge. So I ran 2 miles as hard as I could, and I ran 1 mile as hard as I could. And my times were like average, okay. And then I couldn't move. So then I'm showing up to track to try out for all of the things I'm actually interested in, which I really wanted to do pole vault. And I couldn't move, so I didn't get to do pole vault. And I probably didn't try out very well for any of the shorter distance races, which were what I was probably more suited for. I gradually landed on some of my best distances were the middle distances. And in middle school, I managed to get pretty decent at some of those. I would sometimes be selected for the invitational only events for distances like the 800. And I remember running I think I ran the 400 in middle school in a time of like 1:01. And I remember that because one of my good friends was just a few seconds ahead of me, and he had a time of 57 seconds, which seemed really good. Like he got under a minute, and I was just 1 or 2 seconds above a minute. But that was with no experience, no training, no real knowledge about how to approach that, and no workup to it. And it was in 7th grade, so like looking back on it, it seems pretty good. And I didn't know that. Nobody told me that was good. And part of that is because in this formalized version of running, you are competing against other people. So good is if I could beat Mike. 4 seconds behind Mike didn't seem that good. It seemed like I was one of the okay runners and he was really good because he was 4 seconds faster than me. And I think there was 1 or 2 other people who were also ahead of me, so I didn't even make the podium. I think we actually had pretty decent runners at our school, because I think times under a minute, I don't really know, but I think that times under a minute are pretty good for a 400 meter in 7th grade. And we had multiple kids who got under a minute, and I felt like I'm not even in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd place here at a minute 2 or a minute 3. And I kind of I had a lot of fun in track, and I'm sure that a part of that was the process of getting better at running, and it was, the pushing myself, and it was all of that related to the running. But I really thought, like, I don't really like this running thing that much anymore. I like hanging out with my friends, and I like the competition. You know, I like the times that I actually place. But that wasn't enough to keep me inspired to run. Beyond middle school, I ended up going towards tennis in high school because I saw that as a more fun sport, and I'm all about having fun, and that's kind of my mindset. Life is for having fun. Check out these like moose tracks, not the ice cream, actual literal moose tracks. You know, life is about having fun, right? And I really believe that. So running wasn't as much fun as tennis in high school, so I chose tennis. And then I didn't run again for over 10 years, from 8th grade. 8th grade being the last time that I ran with any sort of intention at all. And then it wasn't until I was about 25 that I decided I want to run. I just want to check it out. And I was in the perfect place for me to check that out. I was living just a mile down the road from one of my best friends who used to run cross country. And so I would run halfway towards him, he would run halfway towards me, and it really helped me make that transition into liking running. Because initially I liked the idea of hanging out with my friend and doing something that he was into and that I was willing to get into. But as I started running, as I started this journey, and it was really just a journey just to find out, how far I could go, to try something new in life, to do something different. My wife and I had recently separated, and it was just like something to fill a void, and also something that I was genuinely interested in its own right. And when I started, I was really bad at it. Initially, I was running at most a quarter mile. I was like, I can run a mile. I could run a mile in 7th grade. Like, I can definitely run a mile. I found out I couldn't run a mile. I could run a quarter mile, and then I'd have to walk. And here's where this question comes back up for me. My biggest question right now is this ice safe? Because it doesn't look very safe. So I can go on the shore. But the question that came up for me at the time, the question that comes up now based on my attitude that I had at the time, which wasn't really a question at the time. My attitude was simply, I'm only doing this insofar as it is fun. I think I'm going to go back the way I came. It's getting so melty out here. My attitude was, I'm doing this and it's going to be fun. And I'm not pushing myself at all. If I need to walk, I'm walking. If I feel like running, I'm running. If I go back and forth between the two, I go back and forth between the two. And that happened a lot. I never, this was like the antithesis of middle school running. I never ever pushed myself to run farther than I wanted to or faster than I wanted to. There was no pace. There was no one to race against. When I ran with my friend, he was great about, we're going to go whatever pace you want to go. And I was like, hey, you go at whatever pace you want to go. I don't care if it's faster than me, which was great because before long, I was the one who was outpacing him. And since I had never pushed him to slow down for me, I didn't feel bad not slowing down for him. And, and we'd catch up with each other at the end of the run. And we'd run segments together, even if it wasn't exactly the pace that was right for one or the other of us. But, at the end of the run, if I still wanted to go faster, I'd go faster. And we catch up at the end, and it was super fun. So the point is, I only did what was fun. And here's what happened. I think I can be pretty quick with this summary. Here's what happened. I think I started running in the late fall, because I remember going into winter and it getting colder and colder. I might have had a couple of months before it was harsh winter, and it was a very harsh winter that year. It was a great year because it stayed beautiful and sunny and warm well into October, even the end of October. There was a quick transition to winter, and then it was this beautiful, cold, snowy winter. And by the time it was a beautiful, cold, snowy winter, I was 1 or 2 months into this thing, and I was doing great. And I felt it was so much fun, to keep coming back to that word, but it was so much fun running through the deep snow. And I would always wear a t-shirt and shorts, no matter what temperature it was. I remember going out at below zero, wearing a t-shirt and shorts and gloves, and not feeling cold whatsoever, instantly acclimated, just having so much fun and feeling so awesome. And I could run any time of day. I remember running at nighttime in the winter, and maybe it was only 7 p.m. because, you know, in Michigan in the winter, it's like pitch black at 7 p.m. I remember running through this beautiful snowy field around Christmas time and just thinking, wow, this is my Christmas present to myself, just being able to do this. And I remember at times along the way, as I felt like, you know, I wasn't gonna get there because I was walking all the time and I wasn't running fast at all, I just imagined this future where I could run freely through the woods and jump over logs and duck under branches and, you know, basically free run through the woods, which obviously is foreshadowing of the channel name now, Wilderness Runner. Like, that was what I envisioned. It wasn't winning races, it wasn't competing, it wasn't being better than anybody else. It was the freedom to do this really primal thing and just run through the woods, ducking and dodging and diving and everything else. So, but here's the results that I had. I keep getting away from that. By the springtime, I'd had to go back and look at it to really know, but probably like mid-March, probably around mid-March, maybe end of March, 1st of April, I was consistently running 3 miles. And that was, you know, in all of this very unintentional way that I went about the whole process, that was just the distance that I ended up landing on. And it was partially because I had created a schedule for myself and I was doing a whole bunch of things that I wanted to do. Running was just one of the things on the list. So I'd given myself a window of time, which I think was 20 minutes to run. And obviously it didn't start off at 3 miles, but eventually I found a 3-mile route that fit into that window. And I still to this day haven't spent a lot of time looking up like what times should I expect. I know that for a 5K, 15 minutes is considered really good for like a moderately good runner. Obviously there are elite athletes who are doing it much faster than that. But my guess is that I was around between 18 and 20 minutes for 3 miles, which is basically a 5K. And I feel confident of that because I would fit that run into the 20-minute time frame, and I'd have the time around the edges to put gear on, take gear off, get changed, and move into the next thing. I think if I remember right, I would typically run right before lunch. And that was because I just found that I ran better on an empty stomach, and it was also motivating to get back from that run and go right into cooking myself a meal, which was one of the other things that I put on my schedule. So I want to mention right now that I was living in a very healthy way all around. I was getting plenty of rest. I was using a sleep app. I was taking every aspect of existing so seriously. And so I was cooking myself 3 healthy meals a day. I had healthy snacks on hand, and I'd eat them whenever I wanted throughout the day. I was keeping myself engaged mentally. I was learning a couple of different languages. Pretty much anything I wanted to do, I was doing. And I had a time set aside for it, and it fit into the schedule. And I was also biking every day. I think I'd set aside a longer period of time for that, because in my mind, running is something you do for a short distance, and biking is something you do for a longer distance. So I think I had an hour set aside for biking, and I was biking like 15 to 20 miles each day as well. I thought of biking more as something you do where you really want to explore and go out and see something, because you're traveling faster than you are on your own feet, and running is more just running. It's different. It's a little more close up. You see everything along the way a little bit more closely, whereas biking, you're like skimming past some of the details, but you're seeing more total. And then obviously, taking a road trip is pushing past biking in that same direction. And then walking obviously is the slowest. So like I kind of had these things relegated to their categories in my mind, and each has its purpose. Walking is where you really observe the most closely. Running is like the same, but you're observing a little bit less, seeing a little bit more, moving a little bit faster, and there's this continuum. So anyways, back to the point. On the very last day of this routine, I went for my 3-mile run, and I just felt so good at the end of it that I ran another 3 miles, and I kept the same pace. I probably sped up. I don't remember. I don't want to pretend I remember exactly, but if anything, I probably sped up a little bit, because I was just feeling really good, and I always speed up towards the end of runs, or I did back then when I used to be in better shape, because I have gone about another 8 years without running since then. So I had this amazing run, and maybe I broke routine a little bit because I had travel plans coming up the next day. So the next day I flew to Mexico. From there I caught some buses. I went to Honduras, and I met up with my wife, who had been separated from me for like a year. A little bit less than a year, but it was a year that had moved very fast. And it was pretty clear to both of us that we were moving towards divorce. And in my mind there was some desire to prevent that. So, and I'm not sure if there really was in her mind at that time. I was supposed to meet her at a hostel, and I had been out exploring when she got in, and then when I got back, she was already gone. And then I ran into somebody who had seen her and knew which way she had gone. But because she had already left a little bit ago, he started to explain to me the shortcut that I should take to get to her. And it seemed simple enough, but as he kept just talking and talking to me, I was like, she's gonna be long gone, man. Like, thanks for telling me about the shortcut, but you've been like talking my ear off for another 5-10 minutes past that point. So I take off, and obviously I'm intent on reaching her, and this provided this space for me to do something I had not done previously, which was to run really, really hard. Because I simply hadn't been in the mindset of I'm going to run all out ever. I would kind of hit it towards the end of my runs for the last like couple hundred meters maybe. I'd approach a near sprint to finish out the runs. And anyways, so in this particular moment, fueled by all this like almost out of body experience, right? Because I'm in an unfamiliar place. I'm still not really familiar with my own physical abilities yet that I've been building over the last 4 to 6 months, however long it was. And then I have this existential element of trying to catch up with this woman who is so important to me, who I might lose soon, and everything else. Here we go. Let's just run up this road. This is a better fit. So I start sprinting down this shortcut, which is just a road that supposedly is going to intersect with wherever she went. And I am basically having an out-of-body experience because I am unfamiliar with how my own body is responding. And I don't know, how much was adrenaline, how much was endorphins, how much was chemical as opposed to physical. But I'm just flying down this road. I'm looking around at everything I'm passing like, a distant observer who is just on a different level. And I do not get tired. I do not get out of breath. I just keep sprinting and sprinting. And I keep passing intersections, and I feel like my senses are very heightened, and I'm looking around for any glimpse of her. And every time I don't see her, I just keep going. And finally, after a long time of sprinting, I realize there's no reason for me to think that I'm gonna find her, right? I've passed so many different intersections. There's so many different turns. This guy, for some reason, thinks he knows where she's going, but he doesn't know what road she might have turned down 20 seconds after she left where he saw her last. There's absolutely no reason for me to think I'm gonna find her. And it was all just this high, this emotional and physical high, making me feel like this is some divine moment, and I will absolutely, without a doubt, definitely find her. And the fact is, we did find each other because we had planned to meet at this hostel. So sooner or later, we both ended up back in the same spot and we met up. All I really had to do was wait for her. And this is an incredibly accurate symbolism of life that only gets more accurate, because not only was all I needed to do, how do you say that? Not only did I only need to wait for her in order to find her, by chasing her, I hurt myself. And I didn't realize that because of all the endorphins or chemicals or whatever. I didn't feel it whenever whatever happened. But I hurt my Achilles tendon, I believe, in my left foot. And it was injured for years afterwards. For the next few days, I was like, oh, that hurts. Wow, that's really bad. But it'll go away, right? I've never had an injury that didn't go away on its own within a few days, except for a broken bone. And it just didn't go away. And then I'm like, okay, well, it's gonna take maybe a couple weeks, kind of bad. A couple weeks didn't go away. A couple months didn't go away. A couple of years, it didn't go away. It's only been in the last, year maybe that I have consistently not felt any pain in that left ankle. And then even when I run, I'm still waiting for it to flare up, but so far it hasn't flared up even after I run or exert myself. So I think maybe that's finally cleared up. I don't know for sure. But the point is, to conclude this story, I hurt myself during that run, and part of that, I believe, was that I was wearing these minimalist zero drop shoes, which I'm not sure how I feel about them in general. So I'm not going to really try to make a statement about them in general, but I do think that sprinting in them the very first time you wear them, because I literally went back and forth. They were brand new to me. I went back and forth on using them on this trip, and I ultimately decided these will be great because they're essentially water shoes, right? They're meant to be worn with no socks, and you can they'll dry out quickly. And I'm going to this hot, moist country, and I am trying to pack super light, so now I don't have to pack any socks. And so I wore these shoes and then literally sprinted a long distance in them the next day. So that's not how you break in. That's not how you adapt to any new shoe, especially minimalist shoes like zero drop, everything else. They were the most minimalist shoe you could get, which kind of just shows my penchant for extremes. But here's what I come back to. When I look at how well I progressed during that time, when I never pushed myself once, to me, 6 miles at probably a 36-minute pace, I think that's really pretty good by any standard. But it's not monumental. I don't think anyone's gonna say wow, that is incredible. Only someone who's gonna break world records is running at that pace. So that still leaves room for the argument that if you want to break world records, you gotta push yourself way beyond when it's fun. But I think what's noteworthy about it is the fact that I ran it only, and I'm not sure exactly, but less than 6 months, somewhere between 4 and 6 months after starting running again, after not running since middle school, for over 10 years, and maybe about 10 years. And it was 6 months of only doing what was fun. I put no pressure on myself whatsoever, except to walk out the door every day. That was the only pressure I put on myself. Every single day, I put on running shoes and I walked out the door. I gave myself permission to walk right back in if that's what I wanted to do, and it never was. But walking more than running was what I wanted and needed to do many times early on. And I didn't give myself any negative talk for that. I wasn't even okay, well, walk if you have to, but start running again as soon as you can or whatever. It was, I went hands off of myself right away, okay, yep, walk, that's great. No problem, walk as long as you want. It was almost reverse psychology, if you will. Because if I put pressure on myself to start running again as soon as possible, I'd be dreading it. I gotta start running again. But when I said walk as long as you want, before I knew it, I was I kind of want to run now. And when I wanted to run, I'd start running again. So my question is, how often are we under the illusion that we're creating progress by pushing ourselves, because we force ourselves to do something just the tiniest bit sooner than we're ready for it. But maybe when you open up that pace a little bit, when you open up that timeline a little bit, when you take all pressure and all predetermined timelines out of the picture, maybe you're gonna progress naturally, just, let's say, arbitrarily 10% behind where you're progressing with pushing yourself. Maybe you feel like, if I didn't force myself to do this right now, I would never do it. But maybe you're like 2 days away from the point at which you actually just want to do it. So that's my question. I guess it's maybe kind of a dangerous one. It's kind of a scary one if your belief system about exercise and about athletics is one of pushing yourself all the time. And I'm not going to say there wasn't any kind of element in there at all, because I did decide I want to run. I did decide I'm going to position myself in that direction. I did decide I'm going to put on running shoes, I'm going to step out the door. And I did tell myself this narrative, and I think it might be a valid one. The narrative was, it does not matter how fast I'm moving. What matters is that I'm moving in the right direction. And to me, if I put on running shoes and walked out the door, that was more movement in the right direction than sitting on my couch scrolling or whatever it is I was doing. And it also gave me permission to sit on my couch, on my phone, but I ended up, and on my iPad, which I used a lot back then, but I ended up doing things on those devices that I also really enjoyed and really valued, like learning languages, like writing. I gave myself time to write every day. Another thing that's really daunting, just like running can be. Because what if you sit there to write and you don't know what to write? And I approached it with the same exact mindset. I don't need to write. I don't need to write anything. I don't need to put a single word down, but I am going to open up my laptop, open up my Word document where I have my journal. I'm going to sit there and look at it, and I have 30 minutes to do this. So if I write something, great. And if I don't write something, that's fine. But I have decided that every single day is going to have space in it for me to do this. And I really, even though I'm not trying to brag on my results, I feel pretty good about them. So like, let me toe that line there of, I feel really good, really proud of what I accomplished, because I think, especially looking back, that the pace and the mileage that I reached in the short time that I did this was great. And I also think that my mindset coming back from that trip where I injured myself was kind of the opposite, because I'd had this great 6-mile run and I felt like I should be able to work back up to that, and I didn't really know how to manage the injury. And so I ran through it, and I tried to stretch a lot and other things, and it seemed like it wasn't really getting worse, but it wasn't getting better, so I just dealt with it. And the big thing was something switched, and I was pushing myself, and I didn't see that same trajectory hold true. So maybe I just reached a place where I was going to stagnate, and I did push myself for a while to keep getting better. And every day I moved. I was no longer in a cabin in the woods. I lived in a residential house on a residential street. And so every day I would run one driveway farther, or one kind of major intersection farther, like commercial driveway as opposed to residential driveway, because obviously if you're only going one driveway further, that's not much. And so I was running a little bit farther every day, and that, looked to me like progress. And I was still running a pretty fast pace sometimes for very good portions of those runs. And I still wasn't super regimented about like, I have to hit this pace or this time or anything else. It's just, every day I'm determined to run a little bit further, because that's like my measure of progress now. But I can run at whatever pace I want. And, I often found at that time, I just wanted to run faster. I like the feeling of pushing myself. And I think that's where the line starts to blur for a lot of really good athletes. And when you look at Courtney Dauwalter's, if I pronounced that right, because I'm not looking at her name on the screen right now, and I think I'm remembering it right, but she's the woman who ran, I think, the Western States 240. I'm forgetting now, but she's an incredibly elite runner, one of the best in ultra and long distance. And her attitude is one of, I'm really grateful to be out here doing this. Like, it blurs the line between suffering and joy. It blurs the line between what is pushing yourself to do something you don't want to do, and what is maybe reevaluating what it is you want to do, and just changing the narrative to the point that this is something I want to do. And I think that's a really valid mindset to hang out in, a valid place to hang out in with your mindset. And it's something that not that it matters, as to whether it's right or wrong that I did it or not, but I found myself there a lot where I'd be like, okay, I don't want to run, and then stop running and be like, I do want to run. And there's a lot of evaluating and realizing and re-evaluating and re-realizing what it is you want to do, what it is you want to feel. There's that shift from, this feels bad, this hurts, my body doesn't want to do this, to, this feels good. I like that. I like this sensation in my body. I like pushing it a little bit harder. I like feeling the muscles in my legs, contract and push me forward a little bit faster. I like engaging my core. I like just feeling the sensation that comes with pushing myself. And I think that some of that relearning happens, going back to the very beginning of the video, because of the ways we've learned to dislike those things as the result of being pushed maybe just a little bit too far by this institutionalized version of athletics, or maybe even just being pushed without preparation for the mindset, without the awareness of our internal desire to accomplish this, or any respect for our internal timeline. As 6th, 7th graders, to be aware that, yes, inherently we want to run, but we've been in this system where we're not given time and space to run the way humans maybe are meant to. We're not given time and space to move and have freedom of movement in general. And then all of a sudden it's presented to us as this task, as this institutionalized task, as opposed to a freedom. And I wonder what happens when we approach running and approach other things in life with an awareness of the freedom we have, and permission to take the time we need to learn what it is we truly want to do, so that we're not in this illusion that we are constantly tricking ourselves into doing something we don't want to do, when maybe in reality we actually want to do that thing, and it's just been misrepresented, and we've been led to believe we don't want to do it, but we need to make ourselves do it. And for some reason that is presented as if there's some level of nobility in it, like you need to be noble enough to do these things you don't want to do. And what if we do want to do them? What if it's even better when we do want to do them? And what if the results and what if the outcomes are even better when we do it from that awareness? And I'm talking about everything here, from like running to marriage to like anything in life. So, all right, I think I finally got to the point here, and I'm going to take off. But thank you for watching this video. Have a great day.